Hey guys, it's Brad with GeorgiaProbateResource.com and ArborViewHomebuyers.com. We're a real estate solutions company in Metro Atlanta. We buy houses all over the state of Georgia, and we specialize in the world of probate and inheritance properties. So today, I have compiled a decision tree for you, a process of selling a house that you've inherited, and I've compiled this based on all of my years of experience and the countless properties that we've purchased. And I've learned to ask certain questions through this process because these were all sort of hurdles that we've hit along the way. So let's start out today. So you are in charge of the estate, or maybe you're potentially going to be in charge of the estate, and you have inherited a property and you want to sell this property. First of all, the first question that we need to ask is whose name is the property in? Well, who's on title to the property? Not who's been paying the taxes. The question is whose name was on the deed originally when this property was purchased, and if there's been any other title transfers, who's the rightful owner of this property. So if the rightful owner is still in the name of the deceased and only in their name, then we're going to get into the complicated thing. We're going to sort of skip that for now. We're going to jump to the next step. Are you the surviving spouse of the deceased, or maybe you're the surviving child of the deceased, and there were two people on title. Maybe you were on title and they were on title together. Here's the big question: were you, and this is the legal term, joint tenants with survivorship, or were you tenants in common? Usually, if you're tenants in common, it doesn't explicitly say that on the deed. But if you are joint tenants with survivorship, it explicitly says that on the deed. So if the deed does not explicitly say joint tenants with survivorship, then you are tenants in common. You fall in this bucket over here. I'm going to explain joint tenants with survivorship here. And I'm not an attorney. Do not take what I say as legal advice. If you need a referral to a great attorney, I can do that. I'm just speaking from experience here. I've done this. I've done hundreds of deals. I've been doing them over the years. So if you are joint tenants with survivorship, are you the survivor? And if you are, then now, once the deceased has passed, you now basically own 100% of this property, right? You're now the surviving owner of this property, and you can sell the property. So let's go back to tenants in common here. If the deed doesn't explicitly say joint tenants with survivorship, it'll say it on the deed. You'll see it in there are a bunch of legal verbiage and Latin and all that stuff, but it'll say joint tenants with survivorship on there. You'll see it on there. If you don't see that there, then more than likely you had title with that other person as tenants in common. And what tenants in common means in legal terms is that person owns 50% and you own 50%. If they pass away, their estate still owns 50% and you own 50%. If you're the person in charge of the estate, once you go through the whole process and the probate process and blah, 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 when you go to sell, you're going to have to sign your name on the deed twice when you go to sell it. You're going to sign on behalf of the estate, and you're going to sign on behalf of you because you're the other person on title. So if you were tenants in common, you're probably going to have to probate it. If you were tenants with survivorship, joint tenants with survivorship, and you're the survivor, you, generally speaking, do not have to probate the estate in order to sell the house, to sell that specific piece of property. If there were other assets in the estate, you still might have to go through probate in order to sell those assets. But we're talking about one house, or maybe it's multiple houses, but one property here. Okay, so if that's the case, then you can sell if you're joint tenants with survivorship. If you are tenants in common, then we're going to go over what you got to do here in a minute. Okay, the other question is, if the property is already in your name, how did you obtain ownership of that property? If you're the surviving spouse that we just talked about, then ignore this. If you obtained ownership to the property via a quitclaim deed, who did that quitclaim deed for you? Did a real estate attorney or a probate attorney do that quitclaim deed for you? And if they did, more than likely it's valid. That's going to get reviewed as part of the title review process when you do go to sell the property. But if you did it yourself, we've found more times than not that it was not done properly and that quitclaim deed is not valid. I know you probably spent a few $100 or something on that, and maybe you recorded it with the court, but we found a lot of times that that was not done properly or legally, and it's not valid, so you're basically going to have to redo it all. So um, if you already have title to the property and you obtain title either through a quitclaim deed from a probate attorney or a real estate attorney, more than likely your title ownership is okay. Is a quitclaim deed the best way to obtain ownership? Usually not. There's better sort of methods, better documents. But if you obtain through an estate deed or administrator's deed, then generally speaking, that was probably prepared by an attorney, and you're good to go, and you could go ahead and sell the property at that point. But again, consult an attorney. They're going to, when you go to sell the property, it's going to go through the title review process, and they're going to look at that. So let's go over here to the complicated part. Let's step back. All right. So if the property is still in the name of the deceased, then what you're going to have to do is ask this question: when did the deceased pass away? If the deceased has passed away just in the last month, 2 months, maybe a year, a couple years, within the last, generally speaking, 3 years, then you're more than likely going to have to probate the estate. Like 9.9 times out of 10. You're going to have to probate the estate. So now the other question is, if it's been more than 3 years, and I've talked about this in another video, there are some exceptions to the probate process, but they're very, very limited, and they don't apply to everyone in every situation. So don't get your hopes up here. But if you want to know, you need to consult an attorney about that. If you need to consult our real estate attorney that we use, he can sort of ask you some questions and get the facts from you and understand whether there might be a way to actually not have to go through probate. It's a little bit more complicated, but it saves time. But again, it's only in limited circumstances, so please don't take this as gospel because it doesn't happen that often. More than likely, you're going to have to probate the estate. So if you're going to have to probate the estate, now the question is, was there a will or was there not a will? If there was a will, then was the will valid? Generally speaking, a probate attorney can review the will for you and tell you whether the will is valid or not. If the will is valid, then you're going to probate the will in solemn form, is what they call it. So you're going to have to do a petition for probate to probate the will in solemn form. You're going to go through the probate process. Essentially, what's going to happen is a probate attorney is going to review the petition, and they're going to review the will, and they're going to review a few other documents that you submit. And they're going to basically say, yep, the will's good, you're good to go ahead and proceed. And they're going to issue you letters testamentary as the executor. So if you're the executor of the will, they're going to give you letters testamentary. And generally speaking, those letters testamentary are going to have a line item or a clause in there that's going to grant you, the executor, the authority to sell the real estate on behalf of the estate. If you've got those letters testamentary, you can sign the closing documents. You're good to go. Now, there's one more step here. I'll go over that in a minute. Okay, if there was no will or the will was deemed invalid by the courts, you're going to have to do an administration of the estate. So you're going to have to figure out who you want to be the administrator of the estate, someone you trust. Maybe it's you. You're watching this video. More than likely, it's probably going to be you. And you're going to have to do an administration of the estate. If you do the administration, you're going to have to basically file a petition for administration, right? And through the petition process, they're going to ask you for some documents. In the petition, you're going to have to name all the heirs. You're going to have to name assets, blah, 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 blah. You're going to have to name who the administrator is going to be. And generally, you might have to get a bond. You'll have to go reach out to a company and get a bond to be the administrator. It costs a little bit of money to get a bond. Once you get bonded, then they'll give you can get sworn in as the administrator. So if you're the administrator, you're going to go through the probate process. I'm not going to go through everything in the probate process here in this video, but ultimately you're going to get your letters of administration from the probate court. Once you have your letters of administration, and those letters specifically have a line item that grants you the authority to sell the real estate or the assets on behalf of the estate, then you are good to sign on the closing documents and sell this property. But there's one more step, and I just talked about it a minute ago. So you are going to have to obtain a bank account for the estate. The attorney that goes to transfer this title and sell this property cannot write a check to you personally. The money has to go to the estate. You have to open an estate bank account. So in order to open an estate bank account, you're going to have to obtain an EIN from the IRS. Very easy to do. I have another video on it. If you want an attorney or a CPA to do it for you, you can have them do it for you. But if you're reasonably intelligent, you should be able to figure it out. It's really not that difficult to do. You can go on irs.gov, click on the Obtain EIN. It's up at the top. There's a little drop down, Obtain EIN. It'll ask you whether you're a business or whether you're an estate. You click on estate. Just answer the questions, go through the process, and within a minute or two, you'll be able to get an EIN for that estate. So that is basically sort of the taxpayer identification number for that estate in the eyes of the IRS, because you're going to have to file a tax return for this estate. So once you have that EIN, then you can go get a bank account. So you can pretty much go to any bank. Just call them ahead before you drive down there and say, hey, do you do estate accounts? Most of them do. And in order to get that estate account, you're going to have to have that EIN. Some of them are going to want you to have your probate letter. Some of them will just, you can give them a copy of the petition that you're going to be the administrator, and they will allow you to open up a bank account in the name of the estate. But you got to have that EIN in order to do that. Once you have that estate account and you got your letters testamentary or you got your letters of administration, you can sell the real estate. You're allowed to sell the property at that point. The attorney that's doing the real estate closing is going to review your documents. They're going to ask you for those documents, and they're going to ultimately determine whether the sale is good to go. But most of the time it is if you have those documents. If you got the estate account, because again, the attorney or the closing title company who's doing the closing is going to have to transfer that money to the estate account, and then you can disperse it out to whoever, whatever you want to do with it at that point. Make sure you're doing it according to the law. But at that point, the sort of real estate part of the deal is done. There's still some more steps to be done through the probate process. If you have a probate attorney, they'll tell you what to do. If not, you're going to have, there's some more steps, and I'm not going to get into that in this video. We've got some other videos with attorneys that will sort of outline all of those steps. So I hope this video helps. Again, I'm Brad with GeorgiaProbateResource.com and ArborviewHomebuyers.com. We're a real estate solutions company in Metro Atlanta. We're an investor that buy houses for cash. We'll buy it as is. We'll buy it with all the junk in it. We don't care. We'll give you a quick, easy, fast cash offer. Generally, we can close within just a couple weeks if you have those letters testamentary or those letters of administration. Or if you want to go the traditional route and you want to list the property on the market the traditional way with a real estate agent, I'm a licensed real estate agent in the state of Georgia with One Source Realty in Woodstock. I'd love to help you list the property and get it out on the market. So thanks again for checking out this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.